Alrighty, so welcome back. I hope that went all right. And like I said, if you've got any problems, let me know. So the next thing we want to look at is using what we call a term-to-term rule. Okay, so there's another heading for you to put down, same date, so you can just put it under the other heading. So using term-to-term rules. So term-to-term rules tell you how to find a sequence of numbers starting at one very first term. And to be able to use term-to-term rules, you have to know the first term and then what you have to do to that term to find the next terms. Right? So there is a little bit of prior knowledge that you need to be able to do, so and that you should be feeling confident with before you're using term-to-term rules. So they are BIDMAS. So you know that when you're working, brackets come first. Okay, indices next. Multiplication and division, and lastly addition and subtraction. Right. That's just something to keep in mind. This is going to come in more later on when we're looking at when you've got a formula and you're applying a formula, but it is something that's worth mentioning for the moment. Right. The second thing is, and this is really important for today, is using positive and negative numbers. So remembering our rules for positive and negative numbers. If you're multiplying a positive by another positive, your answer will be positive. If you're multiplying a positive by a negative, or vice versa, your answer will be negative. And if you multiply a negative by a negative, your answer will be positive. Likewise, when you're adding and subtracting, if you add a positive and a negative, your answer, I don't want to say it's going to go negative, but it's going to get smaller, okay? You're adding on something that is negative, so what you're doing is you're really subtracting those values, okay? And your answer should be getting smaller or more negative, right? That's the two ways you could think about that, right? When you're subtracting a negative number, okay, you're taking away something that is negative, which makes it positive, so your solution should get bigger or more positive. Okay, and what I mean by bigger and what I mean by more negative and more positive is, say for example you've got -2 minus 3, your answer is -5 because you're going down, and even though that 5, that's a bigger number, you're going further away from 0. Okay, so there's -5, then you have -4, -3, -2, -1, 0. Okay, so you're starting at -2, you're taking away 3, so you've gone down to -5, and that is more negative than where it was before, even though the value is bigger. Right, and last one is squaring. And squaring, just remember you're not multiplying by 2. 3 squared is 9, not 6. Okay, 8 squared is 64. Not 16, and if you square a negative, your answer is always positive, okay? Because again, that's the same as multiplying a negative and a negative together. That's -2 times by -2, which is +4, okay? Alrighty, so we're going to move on. If you need to write any of that down, again, pause the video, write it down. Otherwise, we're going to move on to some of the next examples. Okay, so we've got 3 examples here. So we're finding the first 4 terms in a sequence, where the first term is 1, and our rule is that we're adding 3 and then multiplying by 4, okay? So the first number is always just the one that you start off with, okay? So we're starting off with 1. That's our first number in our sequence, and I'm going to write that over here. So sequence, okay, 1 is the first value. The second one, we're then adding 3 and multiplying by 4. So 1 plus 3, okay, gives us 4, times by 3, times by 4 gives us 16. Okay, so our second number in the sequence is 16. For the third one, we take that 16, so you don't go back to 1, you use the value from before. So 16 plus 3 is 19, okay, and 19 times 4 is 76. Okay, so that's our third term. Right, the fourth term, 76 plus 3 gives us 79, times 4 gives you 316. Okay, So that's the first one. So there's our first 4 terms in the sequence. Now we know the sequence keeps going, so just put a couple of dots at the end to show that that keeps going. All right, but that's our first 4 terms. All right, second one. Again, we're finding the first 4 terms in the sequence. Our first term is -3. Okay, so again, for our sequence, we have -3. And our rule is we're multiplying it by -5 and then we're adding 6. So the second one, we've got -3 times by -5. Now again, that's a negative times by a negative, which is a positive. So that's like 3 times 5, which is 15. Okay, and 15 plus 6 gives us 21. Okay, so the second number in the sequence is 21. We then have 21 times by -5. All right, now 5 lots of 20 is 100, so that's going to be -105 plus 6. Now again, remembering that if you got -105 and plus 6, that's going more towards 0. So it's the numbers getting bigger, even though the actual value gets smaller, all right? It goes closer to 0. So -105 plus 6 is -99. Okay, so that's the third term in the sequence. All right, and then for the fourth one, we've got -99 times by -5. So again, negative times a negative is a positive. So that's 495 plus 6, which is 501. Okay, and that's our, again, first 4 terms in that sequence. Right, if you're feeling confident with this, you can pause the video now, have a go at the third example, and then re-resume it when you want to keep going, okay? But otherwise, here's the next one. So our first term is -1. We're squaring it and adding 7. So our next term, again, I'm just going to write sequence over here, starting at -1. Now squaring -1, so -1 squared is +1, plus 7 gives us 8. So the next term in the sequence is 8. We then have 8 squared, which is 64, plus 7 gives us 73. Oh, no, not 73. 64 plus 7, 71. Okay, so the next term in the sequence is 71. We then have 71 squared. Now, I don't know that off the top of my head. That is 5,041. Okay, plus 7 gives us 5,048. Okay, so 5,048. All right, there you go. Well, I hope that's been helpful. And again, go back onto that table that I sent you and do that second Google Forms worksheet. And then when you've got some time over the next couple of days, also do the sequences worksheet that I'm sending you on Firefly. Okay, alrighty, thanks very much. Bye.